begonia, which I think is named after the flower. I mean, it's named after the flower, but I don't know if the movie held it exactly the same way, because I didn't check. Anyway, so I did Gray Pill podcast the other night with Headless Giant, doing a screening, a watch party for the conspiracy thriller film Begonia. I think it's another one of the laundry list of A20. A24 has kind of become one of these movie companies that it's just like, since the collapse of Hollywood, it's been like, oh, you want to see an A24 film? Right? it's like it's everything's A24 now. But anyway, so I got out all these deep initial thoughts from the film based on, effectively what the film is. The people portrayed in it, right? And I spoke of the Black Mirror of it, right? And Headless was very much in the point out of the gaslighting of the film, which is true, right? But at the same time, I think with these movies they kind of have to be, and not for bad reasons per se, right? Because it's really up to us to process it. Because the movies are not necessarily there to serve what we believe, right? I think a lot of people, they want to have the movie that serves what they believe. The fight over what the Odyssey is this kind of a fight. It's just like, do we make a movie that fits what you believe? Or do we make a movie that demonstrates how it is? And, or it portrays how it is a certain way. And so, if you were to take this movie and you were to leave it in the ambiguity, maybe repeating myself. Did I say this? I might have said this last night, but it feels like it bears repeating, at least for me. Did I even leave up what I put out last? I can't even remember if I just I think I just went live. I don't think I let it public. I don't know. We'll see if I feel to repeat it. But let's just say that she's human. One of the things I said is that a clever way that they can do this is that, like, oh, we blame the aliens because, we really can't accept that it's us, and so we're blaming the Jew, right? And so it would go there in that respect. You look at her biotech company, Miss Fuller, her biotech company, and that's all up in the business of the globalists, right? And everything about it is kind of like within that idea. It's also this kind of connivery that, like, the only thing about it is that they're biotech. They have certain drugs that they have treated the main character's family with, which is part of his animosity and suspicion that she's not who she says she is. And even if she was, her, through her company, did a horrible thing in his mind to his mother, right? But of course, the story reveals that his mother was, problematic, right? She lied about a few things, but she was actually quite true. She was quite telling the truth about the meta issue of it all. Because there's the meta issue of it all, and then there's the fucked up consequences of everything else. Because there's an implication of getting, this kind of gets into the whole... I think it's Enki was the pro-human of the two Anunnaki, right? So this would be like Enki, the geneticist, favorable to mankind, but kind of by the end of the picture turns her into an Enlil under the pretense. Like let's even forget the aliens, because I was saying forget the aliens, right? Because all of this can be an allegory, and typically is an allegory for the elites, not the Jews, but the elites. The Jews are just the scapegoat, and many of the elites are Jews converted to Judaism to claim being Jewish, to have a claim to the Zionist apparatus, so that way they have something to bounce off of through the legal entity of the state of Palestine, the state of Israel. Excuse me. And so they're called begonias, and begonia actually kind of sounds, I was thinking about it, bygone era. The bygone era. And the movie is, the main characters are mourning the loss of a bygone era. The quote, simpler time where the subtle balance of the ecosystem was in place. The world wasn't full of the controllers and X, Y, and Z, right? Or it was, but it wasn't so bad. Because, these guys are obviously like, they're kind of like, I think the main character is probably an older Gen Xer, or younger Gen Xer, like myself, who are older now, and then, his retarded cousin, right, who seems to be a young millennial type, I would guess you'd say, right? Living in the rural world, somewhat like rural suburban, kind of like pleasant neighborhood. I mean, like, I'd live in a house like that. I'd want to live in it. I mean, like, I live in kind of like a small version of a house. Like I said, this movie's kind of like a Black Mirror, right? I'm on that path because, look, when I was at Revolution Radio, it was indicative that you weren't just a conspiracy theorist. You were struggling so much that the conspiracy was, you're just part of the masses that were selected for lack, for manipulation, for being, under duress when they choose to enslave us all, yada, 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 right? And 2020 kind of proved that too, right? It's not unreal. 2020 fucking happened. It was, they tried their very fucking best to make everybody do this thing. Right? And so this is a movie that has come out in the aftermath of that. And even though they're talking about a plot involving a biotech thing, right? And then the hintings of the pandemic are in there, but barely. It's more just glazing it because, oh, look, the aliens, they run the drug companies, right? And so I make the big point that he doesn't prove anything. He just was lucky enough that his research panned out. He's running on a whole bunch of assumptions. The movie doesn't show you how he tested for this. You just see this big, impressive psychopath science lab, right? And then her playing the Andromedan, which, throughout this whole movie, they give you, other than her behavior, there is no hints that anything is legitimate at all, and her behavior is very subtle. So fucking ridiculously subtle. But also all within the realm of plausible deniability, because you have the fact that you see that she's interested in personal training and hires people to spar with her to fight, which she's a high executive woman. High executive women's they typically do that kind of thing. It's all part of mindset, stress, resilience under stress and pressure, right? So, kind of akin to high negotiation whatevers. She has this idea that she's an important person, which she fucking actually is, right? Because we all know how it works in our world, right? Like, I think maybe in the communist China or something like that, it doesn't matter so much. His CEO goes missing. I don't know, they downplay it. Maybe it's the same. But you're not just some fucking baby with a spoon in your mouth that was just given a big expensive company or whatever, right? She's she comes off very Ayn Randian in her personal whatever, right? She may be probably not, because of how she maybe does things with her, like she does the whole thing, which is kind of like government corporate policy when the government changes but doesn't change, right? And she's just like, oh yeah, it's a new era, it's the end of the day, you can absolutely stay if you got to do work, but you can leave, there's nothing, it's all right, but but thank you for working hard, basically a full it's just like, all right, are you saying people can fucking leave without worrying about it a little early, or fucking not? Like, what the fuck, right? It's just like, it's set in a way where she can make the change, but she makes sure that it looks like nobody wanted the change by implying, like, that I don't want you to change your behavior, but now I have changed if you need to change your behavior, right? So that already makes her a little bit of a conniver. And then the movie is making that social commentary. Mankind is so close to being that fucked up to those that run the system that they will break our whole system and make sure that it all just comes to an end. If one person projects their bad day onto us, or in this particular instance, their bad life, right? These two characters, they don't get into it about their personal problems. There's no personal responsibility, right? There is probably living an original lie, and the world doesn't work that way, and now you're stuck in a life that you hate, right? like I said, this movie's a little bit of a Black Mirror. I'm not happy with things where I am. And I'm not interested in doing anything to anyone else about it. I talk about the fucking system and how I think things ought to be. You know, just like the main characters is just like, well, there ought to be more bees in the world, so the begonias don't die. Right? This movie directly gets into eugenics, where the conspiracy theorists rationalize neutering themselves to protect themselves from the enemy, as a sacrifice. Right now, they are sacrificing their own ability to pass genetics on. Right? And you know, it's showing you like these guys are sad. But it's still the world as you fucking know it. And there was no conspiracy against it, even from this elite. But it's still the world that you live in at the same time, right? You know, did these aliens, these elite, possibly have a true fear? Considering the movie implies that it was all real, right? And so that wasn't a lie at the end. Which I can't 100% remember exactly what she promised him to make him go through with the thing, right? But like, she wasn't lying, like she was gonna send him up, right? The closet is basically just a coordinate point. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked after the explosion. But it's a coordinate point. It's all so fucking ridiculous, right? So the movie is making the statement that you can be totally right about the conspiracy, and there will be nothing you can actually do about it. And the only people that end up being right about the conspiracy are people that have time for it. And you either have time for it because you've made a success of yourself in other venues, or you've failed and you have too much time on your hands, right? They don't tell you whether he works full-time or part-time at that company, but he works down in the basement area. You know, he's like part of shipping and receiving kind of thing. You know, he works in the mail room, and so you can assume minimum wage. Which gets into the ideas of the savants and his talents, but his talents have they don't do anything money-wise, right? You know, like he's actually scientifically he's very, very smart, right? Like he knows how to do the thing. Like he does, he did research, dedicated the time, had the whole mind map, followed the articles, yada yada yada. Did the whole thing. But he's was only experiencing, despite the fact of that conspiracy, his own fucking horrible situation. Even in the pandemic, right? My pandemic experience was, like I was already having trouble as it was, but I at least wasn't in the worst, most compromising of circumstances. And I pushed it as far as I fucking could, thanks to, biding my time via being a rideshare guy. And so, although I eventually lost out on that, I bought myself enough time to get through the other side without being initiated into their cult. And that is what's led me to being here as I am today. And it's got perks I wouldn't turn in for the world. And I wish I had made some better decisions like some of my other friends who made the same kinds of changes during that time, but were more capable people, doing better, taking care of things, having a family, and like all the things. And hey, listen, what am I going to do? I can tell you the truth of the conspiracy that the church did this in the bygone era of the pagan is no more, and I chose the outsider life, and because I think it's the superior thing, and now everybody's in the inferior, and I'm going to save the world from itself that nobody asked for, right? And of course, the movie is meant to scare us, by the idea that the elites are going to kill us all just because of some retards that failed at life. So I certainly am not that guy, right? And I think that there is yet still plenty of certain kinds of projections. There's plenty of things that I can point at. Look, I can point at the whole fucking way that I knew I should have rebelled against the fucking education system and everything else, right? It's just like we're all very willing now to abandon education, right? And we were abandoning the education system before we fully understood that Robert Maxwell had done what he did with the standardized textbook. So we're dealing with another level, right? I'm not the best example of things, right? Because I legitimately have my own issues, right? And it doesn't matter that you could find something that say, well, you just weren't raised right because we lost this thing that we used to do, which is exactly what you needed, especially you, more so than anyone else, right? All because I'm the one that decided that I was going to have a temper tantrum about it as the only thing I could do. So it sucks because you're very smart and you're very stupid at the same fucking time, right? And you get lost. You get lost in it. It becomes your whole world. It becomes your whole identity. And you cling on to some sort of act that you want to do because it's part of you feeling that ticking, like time running out for yourself. And personally, what are you going to do about it? Right? That was this guy's moment of going into the desperation that way, right? I know that pained look. And so yeah, you can figure it out. You can figure out the whole conspiracy like everybody else has. You need to know what the fuck you're doing about it, right? And you need to know what you're doing about yourself, first and foremost. And it becomes quite something when finding yourself surprises you with how much power you give yourself, how much freedom you give yourself, right? And then it's just the time it takes to fix it all and to iron out all the horrible flaws that you still have within yourself, right? I still do it. I can still be a little socially inappropriate about things. Get myself into a little bit of trouble, right? Makes me feel to recluse, at least for a little while, right? Because I don't need to be scaring people and scaring myself anymore, right? This guy did all this shit, never, and like, never thought for a second, like, what the fuck am I doing, right? Like, he has test results that panned out. These are very important, but I know I'm going on about this, but because I think that this is also very indicative to the psychological argument the film is making, which I think is actually a sound and based argument, because it's the same kind of rationalization of, think about people that were half right about the pandemic, right? Like, if the needlecraft was supposed to turn everybody into genetic biobots, it failed at doing. Certain things through psychology of it all and whatever is happening in the blood-brain barrier with that bullshit put in you and everything else. But your understanding of the data was just like, yeah, sure. I think I'm certain that these things are biobots. You're not necessarily understanding the data correctly. You don't know why the electroshock torture test revealed certain people reaching a certain threshold, and at the time that she finds out about the others, and she's asking how many Andromedans. Assume that she's now committed because she has a plan against him. So she's committed to the lie because she's got a whole thing figured out to address his delusion. But she still lies to him, and he poisons his mother and kills her. sure that you're interpreting your scientific data correctly. Right? What the movie lacks is the concept of the peer review. Now, we had thrown away the concept of the peer review many, many years ago, and it was building up to that. Prior to that, with, the conspiracy movement, when we knew that shit wasn't logically and rationally adding up despite peer review, right? As somebody who was at war with the war on drugs for a long time to legalize cannabis, right? Peer review studies had made all sorts of assumptions. Peer review is part of a social accountability. And your peers can get things wrong, but we're all just human beings capable of getting things wrong. You have to provide a little bit of grace. The only difference is that the peer review can't just be its own authority. It has to appeal to the scientific method as the authority. Just like the gods have to appeal to the Jin region, so does the peer review have to appeal to the scientific method. Get it? All right, I think I've said everything I wanted to say on the Begonia film in this respect, right? And I think ultimately the secret to helping out other people like them, if there is a helping out for those who are regardless going to be stuck in their circumstances, is to show them that they are not alone, that we understand, but that we also want to tell you that you're wrong about X, Y, and Z things. But you want to tell them first that they are wrong about the hopeless things. Right? Get to know them first. Like all people, they're fucking, they feel alone and abandoned and X, Y, and Z, and the research matters. They want to be seen for their research. But there's the deeper human element, right? The altruistic mission of saving the bees is also just part and parcel of we want to be good stewards of the earth for how we've been and everything else, right? So I love the way everything is just kind of like naturally weaved together, right? You can't explain the premise of this movie in simple terms, but at the same time, you can pitch it on simple terms, and so it works. It does. Okay, that's it for me. Let me see if I can try and... so much sun. The movie was very accurate, mocking humans, how they are, how they think, yeah. And a lot of movies are gonna do that. They're gonna do that, right? You have to accept that a lot of movies are gonna sometimes sell you the truth, but they're gonna, also have stupid people that is at the frontal perception of the film, and there's a little bit of the mockery, but like that's also coming from a truth of stupid that are out there too, right? And I talked about this when I had Tom Althouse on. Shout out Tom Althouse of the author of The Immortals, The True Matrix. Where like a guy like Spielberg put certain concepts into a film and certain people in a film, and those people reacting to those concepts are dumb idiots, and it's just like that's what they think of you, right? And so these two guys are also what the elites think of us, but they don't think of us that way in a misplaced fashion. So, take the film as a little bit of tough love, to be honest with you. Take it as some tough love, because it's the movie still went with the idea that they're, quote, right? It's a sad fucking story, right? It's just like it's not even dark humor, but it plays like dark humor with all the horrible ways that it goes, but how not funny anything happening to them really is, other than it's kind of funny because it's so stupid that they would make these kinds of decisions, right? Terminal patients shouldn't have to pay for health care. This is unfortunately where I have to disagree with you. A terminal, you don't know why that patient is terminal. If the patient is terminal because they're a fuck who keeps fucking doing the wrong shit, they're a liability on the insurance company, they gotta pay. Right? They did that to themselves. You have to understand, dude, look at how people fucking are. Look at people's diet of choice. Lifestyles of choice, exposure to things of choice. The elites set it up that way. Sure. But they want you to surrender your agency. And they want to have this communist sentiment of anything not to work. Anything not to work, including sabotaging yourself, which, especially men cutting off their genitals and having medical complications that keep them away from doing physical work of men. Yeah, you end up limiting yourself to just these jobs that don't do much of anything other than move information around for a company. You're paid to move information for a company, right? Congratulations, that's not worth anything. It's worth your base. It's not worth much more than some baseline number, is my point, right? It's not worth anything more than you're working for me, and you're a human being that has needs, and, enough to take care of some stuff under the assumption that you're personally responsible. I probably wouldn't have half the problems I had if I would just fucking bite the bullet and call welfare and say, hey, I want to be on welfare because I'm having a hard fucking time. Call Section 8, hey, listen, I'm applying for Section 8. Yeah, I'm having a hard time, right? See how long it takes me for Section 8 clearance. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'll catch you later.